Okay, time to talk about A Real Pain. I believe I saw this on Hulu. I might be wrong about this streaming service, but I like this film. This film was unexpected. This film has indie film vibes written all over it. Because if you've seen enough indie films, they usually involve a road trip in some way. I'm guessing because it's just easiest and lowest budget to film. In this case, the film is about two cousins. They're not brothers, they're cousins. And they're played by Jesse Eisenberg. And I believe it's the Culkin brother. I think it's Kieran Culkin. Oh, I might be wrong about that. Oh gosh, I hope I'm not wrong. But I think it was the same guy that was in the show Succession. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's him. Anyway, the thing I do want to emphasize is that Jesse Eisenberg, the actor in this thing, directed this film. And he starred in it, and he's doing his usual Jesse Eisenberg thing. And if you've seen enough Jesse Eisenberg films, you know exactly what character he usually plays. You're seeing essentially Michael Cera. Sorry. I'm sorry. I really have a hard time distinguishing the two. I actually believe you could probably do some sort of thing, and seriously, they're a lot alike. They have a lot of very similar mannerisms. They have that kind of quirky sort of look to them. Now, I've seen Jesse Eisenberg in Fleischman's in Trouble. I believe that aired like last year, and that was a really good series. If you haven't watched that, you should. I don't know if I did a 10-minute rant on it, but I did a rant on it a while ago. The premise of A Real Pain is these two cousins had just had their grandmother died, and they want to visit their grandmother's house where she grew up in. And they have to visit Germany, I think it is. They're somewhere in Europe. I want to say Norway, but I know I'm wrong about that, or something. Okay, here's the issue. I believe it is in Germany because they passed several memorials to the Jewish resistance, and there is a scene where they visited a concentration camp, and I'll get to that a little later. Now, I've never really seen a film kind of do this, but essentially the film is kind of just showing their tour, but it's done in such a way that it's a very character-driven film. Because they're not the only ones that are on this tour. There's actually this supporting cast on them, and there's one who's an African, I think his name is Ziloj, from Rwanda, who is a converted Jew, and I actually really liked his character. I actually kind of thought that the whole film should be about him, and he's got enough to do in this film that I really liked. Now, here's one thing that I really enjoyed about this film. Culkin's character has a lot of issues. I mean, you can tell that he has sort of kind of this, I mean, it doesn't look like he's got a career or a job or anything like that. I'm not really sure how he makes his living or anything like that. Jesse Eisenberg's character is more successful. He lives in New York City. He has a wife and a kid, and it's very apparent that he's sort of the stable one here in this relationship. Oftentimes, Culkin's character can be the coolest person in the room, but at the same time, he can be the biggest a-hole. And I really like how this movie plays with this, because I believe that is the case in a lot of situations, where the coolest guy can somehow become the a-hole like that. And there's a scene, for example, where they're on a train, and they're in the first class car, and Culkin's character can't help but notice the irony, the fact that they're Jewish people in this German car, and decades ago, the Jewish people were being hauled off into concentration camps in much lower class cars. And he really has kind of this very emotional meltdown over this thing. And he has this in front of everybody in the tour group. And actually, Jesse Eisenberg's character is very embarrassed by this. But at the same time, and, he's not really certain what to do about this, so they separate from the group for a while, and for a while they get very separated from the group, but they eventually join back. And there's a really great scene where Culkin's character is they're at a dinner table with the tour group, and I'm not really certain what triggers certain things with Culkin's character, but he goes to use the bathroom, and while he's gone, Jesse Eisenberg talks about him, and he talks about him in such a way that, he's saying, like, I really love my cousin, I think he's really cool, but he can be a real jerk sometimes. And there are times in the film where Culkin actually, I think, makes a good point. There's this scene where they're at a graveyard, and this is a very old graveyard. This is a graveyard that has been around since, the 1600s or something like that. And Culkin talks to the tour guide and says, listen, you're talking to these people like they're stats or something like that. Can't we just do something with them and show reverence or something like them? And they put, rocks on their grave and stuff like that. And I actually kind of thought, okay, there's kind of an interesting... I think this film is commenting on a kind of tourist mentality versus really kind of feeling what our generations went through mentality. And you can be a real jerk about this, and how Culkin's character is kind of there showing that, hey, he doesn't really, he kind of doesn't really know how to handle this kind of thing. And I think we as a human nature don't really know how to handle this either. So, and I think it still is something in our society that is, as far as what we're dealing with culture and our generations and all this stuff that we're going through. I think we kind of need a film like this, really. And then I was very pleasantly surprised with this film and how it turned out. And hey, if Jesse Eisenberg is going to direct more films like this, more power to them. This is the third film I've done a 10-minute rant on that features a kind of an A-list star directing their own movie. And in this case, this one worked out really well. Especially the scene at the end, and I'm going to get into spoilers here, where they get to their grandmother's house, and they decide to leave rocks at the doorway as a sort of commemoration for them. And there's a guy there who's speaking to them in another language, and they have a translator there, and he's basically saying, hey, listen, your grandmother really isn't buried there, right? I mean, you realize if you leave rocks there, somebody's going to trip over them. So do you mind moving them? I kind of thought, this is a really awkward situation, but I can see how this really would develop. Now, there's one scene that I really loved at the end of this film that I did not expect to be. This scene made me laugh out loud. But when they visit their grandmother's place, Culkin's character mentions to Eisenberg's character that grandmother once slapped him. And apparently he was misbehaving or something in front of people, and that was the source of this. And he didn't see it as abuse. He thought of it, he actually said, it was actually something that really stuck with me. I mean, she was willing to, she was just basically telling me, not going to take your crap. And it, but here's the thing. I mean, I'm not really sure if it's trying to show that Culkin is reeling from the abuse of it. I don't really think they're going that direction. Anyway, so at the end of the film, and where Eisenberg and Culkin are facing each other, and Eisenberg basically invites Culkin over to his place to have dinner, and Culkin refuses. Which is strange because Culkin has been talking about how come you don't invite me over, or how come we don't never get together anymore. So Eisenberg slaps him, and then he goes and he's going oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that, and I'm just going I really enjoyed that scene. I felt this film has been successfully leading up to this moment, and that moment is great, and this is how most films, even of a low budget quality, and and this is basically your garden variety independent film should end. So yeah, I would recommend this film, and that's why.